Some dare call it conspiracy.
Welcome to Some Dare Call It Conspiracy with Brent Lee and Neil Sanders.
As the planet spirals into a fascist dystopia, we thought someone really should keep a record of this decline, so that when the aliens are sifting through the ashes of civilization, they might be able to see where it all went wrong.
This is The World According to Some.
Or as all the hepcats are calling it, T.W.A.T.S. February the 20th, David Icke's back. And, he's, as we've seen recently, he's sort of rambling and trying to go for attention and whatnot. And he went on a podcast that I didn't expect him to go on, to be quite honest. Have you ever heard of the podcast Fresh and Fit?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. It's for people that don't know, it's like a manosphere type thing. It has sort of evolved and got sort of more controversial over the years. It's these sort of people that want to sort of give the impression of like building up men as sort of men of worth and giving you advice to sort of look good and sort of be a productive member of society. It's basically sort of
And you've got David Icke on.
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But it used to be, well, there's a reason for that. But it used to be like vaguely sort of like very, very thinly veiled pickup artistry stuff, as in like if you do what we do, you will get the girls and blah blah blah. And then I think through the years, it sort of evolved into sort of more controversy as they felt that they themselves were personalities and whatnot. So apparently, this Fresh and Fit podcast began in October 26, 2020, as part of the manosphere and the men's rights movement, and it was founded by this chap. Who I believe is Fit of the duo, called Myron Gaines, and he's a real estate investor, but he's a learned man. Brent, he's an author. He's proud author of Why Women Deserve Less.
So a feminist then?
No. He's an arch enemy of feminists, Brent. The feminists are out to get him, and they're out to get everybody, and they should be like destroyed, apparently. And his co-host, yeah, well, quite. But that's Mr. Myron.
Just for the record,
that's Mr. Myron Fit Gaines, I believe, and the other guy whose name is Walter Weeks is called Fresh, which is very cool. And
Walter
Fresh
Weeks.
Anyway, so they're this racist, homophobic, sexist, anti-Semitic, grim pair of sort of sad twats that project themselves as the sort of people that only men with the brain of a teenage boy would aspire to want to be. And interestingly, Myron Gaines, he used to be a Homeland Security special agent. So technically, he's the enemy. He was part of the Matrix. But, now he fights against the Matrix and feminism and political correctness and all that stuff, which basically means that despite being of colour himself and his partner, they tend to be quite racist against black people. They've espoused views that essentially black people are the problems of cause most of the problems in the world and have lower IQs, like the sort of bell curve theory sort of shit.
God, yeah.
He also questions the Holocaust because they're just asking questions. A lot of these questions seem to be questions about sort of Jewish people, about black people, and about how come they're so shit. But they are simply asking questions. But they make it clear that they're fighting the feminists, the Matrix, and the Jews. So anyway, David Icke's on there, and this isn't. He's sort of missed the boat somewhat with these guys because, like, they used to be like really popular. At one point they were like number 9, like the 9th most popular show on YouTube. And then he went a bit mental, and he had a couple of other influencers, a chap called Sneeko on the show, and they were basically comparing black people to monkeys, despite being of colour themselves. Yeah, absolutely. So when they got kicked off YouTube, they decided that the best thing they could do was to have a go at their fans for not supporting them, because they'd given them loads and loads of free content over the years. I mean, sure, they'd been making money off of it, but it was essentially free. So they started to ask their fans to invest in this club, which was going to cost a mere $30 to $40 a month. And for that, you could get to watch the same content that you'd been watching for free previously. You've got to remember, this guy is an investor. He's a master businessman. So, like, that is a very, very clear way to get a lot of money very quickly. Didn't work, obviously, because people went, fuck off, we're not doing that. And since then, they've had sort of diminishing returns. They keep sort of falling out with each other on air and shouting. And they've now appeared to sort of like significantly downsize their operation. So now they've got David Icahn. And David's there, and it's oh dear, I watched it, but I did watch it on double speed. And I'm pretty sure I didn't miss anything. Like, they start off by saying, like, David knew that COVID was a hoax. And do you want to have a sort of, like, put yourself in the mind of David Icke and figure out why he knew that COVID was a hoax?
Because viruses don't exist.
No, not quite. But good guess, because he did later go on to do that. And he does actually, I think, say that viruses don't exist later on in this interview.
Yeah, that is his stance. That's why I thought it must be that.
But he nicked that off Andrew Kaufman. Prior to that, he hadn't said that, although I think he had dabbled in HIV, denying that HIV was connected to AIDS, or at least he mentioned that. Or maybe that was afterwards. But anyway, at this point, David knew that COVID was a hoax, because if there was a virus, theoretically, it could be used to control people. So he knew that this virus wasn't real.
But what? No, hold on. If
no, Brent.
Wait. No. But the virus then just sitting in the mind of a conspiracist. The virus was used as a control mechanism.
Well, that proves that he was right. It didn't exist.
But
it's not critical thinking, is it? It's superstition at best. It's just batshit bollocks. But yeah, he foresaw that if people thought that this virus was serious and it was contagious and could, cause real problems, then that could be used to control people. And that's how he knew that it wasn't real. I know. It's the sort of, don't think about it too hard. It will give you a stroke. I think he's just wrapped himself up into so many corners with it, like into so many knots with this. Wraps himself up into so many corners that he's just sort of swinging for the fences, like, because he does go on, right? Okay, because he says that he was convinced even further that it was fake. Can you? You might be able to guess what was the second thing that convinced him that it was definitely fake.
Something to do with vaccines.
Bingo! Because they produced a vaccine. That convinced him that the vaccine was probably the point of the hoax. Because again, that would be another way that theoretically they could control you with this thing that wasn't happening. Although it does beg the question why people would go for a vaccine if they had not seen any sort of problems. But anyway, because COVID could be used in this way, he knew that that was what they were going to do, which would prove that it was not real. And then when that did sort of happen, that sort of reinforced his belief that it was real. And then when a vaccine was introduced to help control this problem that he knew wasn't real because of the way that it could cause problems, then that just sealed it for him. And he knew that he'd been right all along. But
Mate, I said that we were here to make sense of it all. And
well, he also goes on to clarify that, like, he never said that COVID was 5G because COVID doesn't exist. All he said was that
was COVID
5G
symptoms
causes the
were
same
caused.
symptoms
Yeah.
that
Yeah. What a
4G.
cow.
But it wasn't, because COVID doesn't exist, so he didn't say that. So is everybody following? Right, okay. So he knew it, right. He foresaw how a pandemic could cause problems, which made him believe that it wasn't true. He then was reinforced in this belief by the problems that this caused, making him believe that it was definitely not real. Then when a vaccine was produced to solve these problems that were caused by the non-existent thing, that absolutely sealed it for him. And at no point did he say that it was 5G. All he said was that the symptoms that were pretending to be this thing that didn't exist could be caused by 5G. But COVID didn't exist, so he didn't say that. So that's David's position on on COVID and 5G. Just to absolutely make sure that nobody's confused by that. So he also then repeats lies about Kary Mullis and PCR, saying that the inventor of PCR, Kary Mullis, had said that you cannot. It's useless for telling you if you've got a disease, and so it couldn't be used for COVID. And he uses the phrase, "You can't tell if you are sick," and he keeps repeating, "You can't tell you if you're sick." Now, this comes from a very, very specific video in which Kary Mullis, he believed that viruses existed, and he believed that you could detect viruses with PCR because that's what he wrote on the patent for it when he patented this device. What he didn't believe was that HIV was the cause of AIDS. He didn't believe that if you had HIV, that would lead to you getting AIDS. And somebody asked, well, how come every AIDS patient that I've seen has got HIV? And this is where these out of context phrases get used. He basically says, well, if you test enough, you can find anything. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're sick. And what he's saying is that basically he's intimating that HIV might be more prevalent and more common in people than mainstream science knew at the time. But that you definitely find it with the PCR. But then he's saying that basically just because you found that doesn't mean that it's going to be the causative agent that makes you have AIDS. And he was wrong. It's just as simple as that. He was wrong. Like, he was a brilliant man, but at this time he'd fried his brains with acid and used to talk to a fucking raccoon from outer space, like, that used to appear in his garden and glow, and luckily could speak English. And so this is, and if David Icke hasn't bothered to check that over the last 5 years, then he's either just lazy or a bit of a charlatan.
I have thought many times before that I would definitely want to be friends with a glowing space raccoon now.
Why not? Absolutely.
I admire him for that.
Absolutely, yeah. The amount of money you could save on electricity, invite him into bed and read under the covers and stuff like that. That'd be great. Give him an occasional bit of garbage or sausages. I think they like sausages. Be fine, yeah. He then goes on to say that flu disappeared. And so what he's implying here, though he doesn't actually say, because like if you break it down, it doesn't make any sense, that basically we were told that flu disappeared, but it didn't disappear. And so anybody that you saw that was ill or that died from flu. And there's several problems with this logic. One, flu did not disappear. There were flu cases, to just less flu cases, because we were distancing and masking up and washing hands and taking all sorts of precautions that we don't do. And actually, that's a testament to, why don't we do that every winter? That would save so much time and money and lives and stuff like that. Like, it really is. But there's a second problem with that. The number of people that are made ill and sadly die from flu was microscopic to the number of people that were ill from this disease called COVID, which David Icke says doesn't exist. And the amount of deaths was I think it was 10 or 11 times more. So, okay, let's say it's just flu. Where the fuck did all this extra flu come from? Isn't that the worst case, like the worst flu since the Spanish flu? Because it was. The death rate in the UK, for example, during the COVID pandemic, was the highest it had been since World War II. The excess death was ridiculous. A lot of people died, and they died from COVID. It's clear. And then he basically he goes on with two more classic lies. Oh, asymptomatic transmission isn't real, which is fucking ridiculous. Like, for our entire lives, we've understood how germs work, and how, like, oh no, I spent all day with John, and now John's ill. He wasn't ill yesterday, but he's ill today. I bet I'm going to get the same thing that John gets. This is, the amount of people, it's like, that I had this conversation with during COVID. It's like, are you thick? Are you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with this? Is a thing that we've observed all of our lives. Every single one of us has had it, seen it, experienced it. Asymptomatic. That's why you wear condoms, right? Because of AIDS and HIV, right? Okay. It's asymptomatic. You don't know who's got it. Lots of illnesses are asymptomatic. That's sort of how they would. The symptoms aren't caused by the disease. The symptoms are caused by you when your body notices the disease and starts to fight it. Right? Diseases like to go undetected because then they can do their nasty diseasey type shit. I'm not a scientist, Brent. Right? Okay. But anyway. He then lies about everyone being labelled as COVID deaths and says, oh, there were gunshot wounds and there were people that died in motorcycle accidents and stuff like that. There's a degree of truth to this, like, in as much as some people what happened was, right? Initially, everybody that died that was either had a COVID test or was suspected of having COVID was coded as it having provable or suspected COVID, right? And so what people thought was that this was given as the cause of death, but it wasn't. It was done initially to track the disease, because if you've got all this data, like, if you just ignored that and you couldn't see where the disease was being prevalent. But if you had that, that's data that you can work with and go, okay, maybe we can notice some sort of pattern about the type of people it's affecting, or the type of areas, or the demographic, or whatever, right? Okay. However, afterwards, what they did was they examined the death certificates, and only where there was a proven causative effect and definite COVID did they put COVID as the cause of death. Now, bizarrely, the initial one where they labelled everybody as COVID, like everybody that's suspected, that turned out to be lower than the eventual number of real COVID deaths. So, if what David is saying is that they were hyping up the deaths by putting everybody on there and making that the largest figure, why was that the smallest figure? And they don't have an answer for that. They just go, or maybe. So, you know.
How do you type that out?
He also lies about the financial incentives for COVID in US hospitals, right? Okay. Now, there was, again, a degree of truth for this. For every COVID patient, they got some money, because for every patient, for every condition, American hospitals get some money, because that's how it works. It's on an insurance-based system. So they get the money to cover what they've treated. Now, what nobody bothered to check was, well, did they get more money for COVID than other stuff? No, they don't. There's a lot of other stuff that is far more profitable, or would seem to be profitable. It doesn't go to profit, right? Okay, it just covers the thing. It might be profitable for the insurance companies, to be fair, but it certainly doesn't. Like, the hospitals aren't there like, oh, since COVID, everybody's bought a Ferrari. What's going on? Like, oh my God, nurse, my Rolex has fallen inside Mrs. Robinson's abdomen. Can you please get it out with the forceps? That's not what happens.
Well, they wouldn't need to question, because they were all in it.
Well, that's
all
true.
in on it.
That is true, actually. Fair enough. Myron steps in, and I have to point out that they all looked fucking bored throughout this. Absolutely bored, like they weren't paying any attention at all, to be quite honest. And Myron sort of perks up as he floats the idea that maybe Mossad invented COVID as a bioweapon. And he's he's basically just trying to get David in. Like, come on, let's have a go at the Jews. Let's have a go at the fucking Jews, David. Come on, lovely. But David's not having it because he says that COVID doesn't exist. And he then lies about the social credit system in China, about how, you know, if you dissent against the government, they like nail you to the floor and all this shit. And again, we've discussed this in before, but it's just not really a thing. It's more about debt. It's a thing where if you owe a lot of money, you can't do certain things. But this is really more due to Chinese culture than anything else. Do I agree with it or think that it's a good idea? No, but it isn't what it's been demonized. It's not the 1984 system where you wrote something on Facebook and therefore anyone that stands near to you, their credit rating lowers to the point where they can't buy food, which is what twats like Mark Dice and Alex Jones have said, and David Icke has as well. Like, they lie about it, basically. Now, David reveals the secret. The secret to his painstaking and, let's not muck about, brilliantly accurate work over the past 30 years. He says, when questioned, like, how do you know all this shit? Right, okay, how do you spot all this shit? And how do you do research? And he says, well, you see, if you know the outcome, then you will see the journey.
That is the definition of confirmation bias.
That's fucking completely ass backwards, isn't it? Like, so basically, like, but then he goes on to say, because if you don't have that, then daily events just seem to happen at random. That is extremely telling. That is the foundation of why he does this, because he needs to understand. He needs to have an explanation for why things are happening in the world. Like, I know everything. I know the outcome. The outcome is that it's this. It's, as you said, it's confirmation bias. Like we did on the Manchester thing. If I'm looking for clues that Brent is a girl, he's got long hair, he's softly spoken, he smells fabulous, he's got gorgeous skin. Okay, all of these are indicators that he's a girl. I know he's a girl. That's the outcome. I'm looking for the journey. And in the same way, that's why fucking David Icke is ridiculous about COVID. I knew it was fake. So everything went through this lens of me being right and not altering my my opinion, regardless of the evidence that comes before me, regardless of the new information. No, I know what is happening before I've started, and that's fucking ridiculous as well. It's like, it's not how anything works. That's just not how anything works, basically. But this is about 20 minutes in, right? Okay, and the hosts basically look absolutely bored as fuck. And I think they realised this because they then changed the screen to make them really small and David the main thing. But then comments open up, right? And the first few that I see are, Fresh is sleepwalking right now, which he looks like he is. Where's the proof? Give him a toothbrush mustache. Dave Ulf Eichler, but also slightly more positively, this old fuck is cooking. Later, somebody says, who is this Colonel Sanders looking motherfucker? And a lot of people basically go, yeah, David Icke is the real black pill. And just so that people know what black pill is, yeah, isn't it?
Whoa.
Black pill is incel culture to the point where basically you are never going to be happy. You are always going to be ugly and a beta, and there's no point in looking for happiness. Red pilling is the concept of conservative ideas, and it's usually sort of QAnon type, MAGA inspired potentially Jew hating. It ties in with this concept of man's rights movements, that actually men are really hard done to, and like 80% of girls go after 20% of men, and you've got to treat them like bitches and knock them about and be a bro and be an alpha and smoke large phallic cigars and not discuss feelings. All that guy Gary that he really fancied that one summer. No, push those feelings deep down, deep down. And but blackpilling is really bad. That's proper sort of encouraging people to be depressed, even to the point of committing suicide sometimes. And the fact that the people in the comments are saying that they're pleased that David is giving them their black pill sort of input for the day is not a position you really want to be in, really, to be quite honest. But he goes on to say that he's been cancelled before cancel culture was cool. He's been cancelled since 1995 because he criticised Israel, which isn't strictly true. He was cancelled sort of in 1995, as in his publisher wouldn't publish his books anymore and he had to self-publish because he started denying the Holocaust and promoting the protocols of the Elders of Zion, or revisionally questioning the Holocaust, shall we say. I don't know whether he's actually ever gone full denial, but he certainly questioned it. But anyway, this isn't really strictly true, because if you've been following David Icke, he was on the BBC as recently as 2016 with Andrew Neil. He's also been the subject of that documentary on Channel 4, David Icke Was Right, or Was David Icke Right? He produced that film Renegade. I forget who it was that financed that, but it was that guy that got involved with COVID, who lent his jet to Liz Truss or Theresa May. Anyway, like, David Icke's cancelled himself by basically just trying to be increasingly controversial. In fact, I would go so far as to say he wanted to get kicked off Twitter at a time that he was promoting his own iconic pay-per-view channel, because that would drive people to his channel. And also there was a certain degree of coolness and cachet of being kicked off Twitter, because it proved that you were a rebel and it proved that you were right. But obviously that's bullshit. And he also completely ironically slags off Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, and Russell Brand by saying that essentially they're propagandists, which it's a weird one, that, because it's both ironic and absolutely true. It's ironic because they stole his shtick. They absolutely watched him and stole his shit, and he tried to pander to each and every one of them. I know he's tried to get on Tucker. He's desperate to go on Joe Rogan. Like, he'd go on Russell Brand in a fucking heartbeat. Like, but
the
instead
man will do anything for attention, promotion of himself.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're all propagandists. It's true, but it's weird. Then a funny thing happens, because about 45 minutes in, and suddenly this noise comes over the top. And it's basically obvious that somebody's watching something else on a television screen, because there's all lights flashing on Myron's face and you can hear the sound of something else. And he realizes this and very quickly puts himself on mute. David then tells people that he's been offering solutions for 30 years, but doesn't actually say what these solutions are. Apparently they're in his books, but you would need to buy them to find them. Then he complains about pronouns, while simultaneously saying that I know he's really down with the kids, but also saying that we need to come to a world where people can be who they want to be, but they can't force him on him. And it's like, okay, well, how can people be able to be who they want to be if it's up to you to dictate whether you agree what they are or who they are? That doesn't make a lick of sense. And it's just basically, you're confused and you're old and you're a bigot, and like, just get over yourself. Who gives a shit? This is a man that tried to start a polyamorous sex cult. Is worried about whether people want to be called Z or Zay or Zem or something. Who gives a fuck? Try common courtesy, you fucking dickhead. He later talks about how Bill Gates is definitely a psychopath because he has no empathy. And he can't put himself in the shoes of people who are being victimized, which is a bit bastard ironic because he's just spent ages railing against trans people. He then says that he's disgusted with Alex because Alex is kissing Elon Musk's arse, and then they all perk up because the talk turns to Zionists. And so they spend the last hour and God knows how long just basically slagging off Zionists and saying how everything's basically Israel's fault. And that was David Icke appearing on the Ever So Cool, Fresh and Fit podcast. I don't think it broke the internet quite like people did. People expected it to do, and it was shit and boring. And there was nothing that I'd not heard from David before, to be quite honest. And it was very obvious that the hosts weren't really that interested until they got into a point where they felt that they might be able to slag off Jews. But it didn't really go far enough for them. But hey ho, it is what it is. Like you can't agree on everything, can you? And that was shown by somebody else that we've been following, because Nigel Farage publicly disagreed with Donald Trump on Ukraine. If you remember, Donald Trump had said that Volodymyr Zelensky was a dictator and that he'd banned elections, forgetting that there was a war on, and also lied and said that he had an approval rate of 4%, when in actual reality, Zelensky had an approval rate that was higher than Donald Trump's own approval rate. But Nigel Farage in Politico reported that he'd said on this day that Volodymyr Zelensky is not a dictator, which was a strange sign of disagreement with his close ally, Donald Trump. The US president said that Wednesday the Ukrainian leader was a dictator without elections who duped the US into supporting Ukraine after Russia's full-scale military invasion. Asked about Trump's comments, the right-wing Reform UK leader Farage stressed that Zelensky was democratically elected, but added that maybe they should go to the polls soon. Let's be clear, Zelensky is not a dictator, but it's only right and proper that Ukrainians have a timeline for elections. And basically, the reason was that Farage was on his way to Washington, D.C., because he's going to be speaking at this thing that was coming up called CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference. Anyway, pressed on Donald Trump's remarks and the fact that, like, hang on, I thought you were on his side. And this is particularly choppy because Elon Musk has dropped him as well. Farage said, "You should always take everything Donald Trump says seriously. You shouldn't always take the things that Donald Trump says absolutely literally." Like, it is, that's just crap, isn't it? This is a man who is desperately trying to fight for his political career and appeal to two different demographics, or at least two different demographics that aren't really compatible, to be quite honest. But it's nice to see him flounder, which is fun. Now, can you remember the who we felt had rather let us down recently, particularly at the Super Bowl?
Snoop Dogg.
No, not Snoop Dogg, but close. Satan. Satan really hasn't been. Satan hasn't been pulling his weight. There was no sort of overt ritual, sacrificial ritual going on at the Super Bowl. I think the Grammys also. I didn't see anyone pretending to pull their own heart out or wearing a meat dress or anything like that. It's been frankly a bit lackluster from His Infernal Majesty. But maybe that's because he's actually in Hampshire. You see, as reported by the Mail, a decapitated deer's head has been dumped outside a church in the picturesque national park, sparking fears that possible Satanists have struck again.
Oh, shit.
Isn't it? You see, the animal's head was found next to an upside-down cross outside outside St. Teresa's Church in Totton, Hampshire, which is home to the New Forest National Park. The grim discovery was made exactly 1 month after another deer's head was left outside St. Michael's and All Angels Church in nearby Lyndhurst. So that's 3 deer's heads that have been left outside churches. Reverend Canon Simon Treilor of St. Teresa's Church was unaware of the discovery, but branded it odd. So, insightful, insightful and accurate commentary from the church there. But he did say, if they really wanted to impress me, perhaps they could leave me a couple of pounds of venison sausages. I suppose the pig's head would have been more useful because at least you could cook it with that. But I'm not quite sure what to do with a deer's head. So, if these Satanists have
He's
gone
got a
for,
good sense of humor. Good
yeah,
for him.
if these Satanists have gone to try and scare or intimidate this particular guy,
They've only left him disappointed.
he's only left him disappointed, basically. Yeah. Apparently, exactly 1 month ago, a severed deer's head was left outside of St. Michael's and All Angels Church in nearby Lyndhurst. Oh, sorry, so that's just one. But the New Forest has a strong link with suspected satanic animal killings in recent years. In May 2024, there were 2 possibly cult-related incidents, with a flock of sheep being mutilated and killed, as well as a deer's head being left on top of a headstone. In Burley, home to the famous witch Sybil Leek, the head of a young deer was left resting on a parish council headstone marking the turn of the millennium alongside a hedonistic upside-down cross. A butcher was alerted to a bizarre discovery, with locals reacting with horror to the cruel finding. And in Cadnam, 6 ewes and lambs were found brutally stabbed in this sheep's killing spree, with one being discovered with its throat slit. At a 12th century church at St. Peter's Church in New Forest Village, Bramshaw, congregation members found a dead cat hanging from a flagpole in December 2022, just weeks after a dead fox was found near its doorstep. And in January 2023, police were alerted to possible Satanists after pigs' hearts were found on top of a Bronze Age mound, surrounded by 30 candles.
What the actual fuck is going on?
It's kids. It's fucking kids. Like
whatever it is, it's fucking psychotic. You shouldn't be fucking for killing fucking animals, bro. What the fuck?
Well, this is true.
You're
Also, in 2020, a sheep was found.
A goddamn serial killer when you grow up.
Well, that's certainly possible. In 2020, a sheep was found stabbed also in Cadnam and dumped next to a cross and a pitchfork. And in 2019, Bramshaw was further plagued by suspected Satanists after 2 dead sheep were found with pentagrams spray painted on their bodies. A cow was stabbed in the neck, and the number 666 was daubed on the doors of the church. Now, this is obviously all cruel and mental and ridiculous, but I seriously doubt it's serious Satanists. I think there's a group of teenagers that got a black metal band, and then there's a group of lunatics that have gone round, pissed, and killed a load of sheep.
It's probably raised by owls, making some content for their Instagram.
That would be a turn up for the books if it was acclaimed Nottingham death metal band raised by owls. Like that might raise their profile, and deservedly so, because they're very good. But I tell you who isn't very good. Elon fucking Musk, and his bogus journey continues. So basically, he gets on Twitter and starts repeating lies about Zelensky having a 4% approval rate and having started the war in Ukraine. So just repeating this utter bullshit that is in line with Kremlin propaganda, and he's essentially repeating what Trump blurted out the other day in that press conference. But something rather ironic happened to Elon. He got community noted. So, for people that don't know, Community Notes is the fact-checking device on Twitter, and he got rid of sort of normal fact-checking and basically just introduced Community Notes, which is really more of a sort of majority opinion, but it's still a degree of fact-checking, and it's crap, but it was good enough to call him out on his bullshit. But Elon reacted by saying, unfortunately, Community Notes is increasingly being gamed by governments and legacy media. We are working to fix this. It should be utterly obvious that a Zelensky-controlled poll about his own approval is not credible. What happened to Vox Populi Fox Day? Which he famously tweeted out. If Zelensky was actually loved by the people of Ukraine, he would hold an election. He knows he would lose in a landslide, despite having seized control of all Ukrainian media, so he cancelled the election. In reality, he's despised by the people of Ukraine, which is why he refused to hold an election. I challenge Zelensky to hold an election and refute this. He will not. President Trump is right to ignore him and solve for peace independent of the disgusting, massive graft machine feeding off the dead bodies of Ukrainian soldiers. I think that might be grift machine, but sometimes when you're on ketamine, your eyes go blurry and you can't type properly. The irony of unelected foreigner currently picking his way through all the systems of government, saying that if Zelensky's not been elected and he's not loved by the people, guess what, buddy? Guess what? Oh dear. But yeah, this is ridiculous. Now, we remember that Dom Lucre had been invited to the White House. Well, he went to the White House.
God, yeah.
He went to the White House and pictured himself there with a lot of other people looking whatever. I don't like this guy. All I know about him is that Twitter suspended, then quickly unsuspended his account in 2023 after he posted a screenshot from a video depicting child sexual abuse. He claimed that he posted this child pornography to save the kids. But I don't see how that really works. And there was a lot of anger because basically Elon Musk let him back on Twitter. He had nearly 600,000 followers when he posted a screenshot of a video depicting child sexual abuse on July 22nd, 2023, reportedly connected to Peter Scully, an Australian man sentenced to life in prison for sexually abusing children as young as 18 months. The video was reportedly created on the dark web, and the picture was up on Dom Lucre's account for 4 days. Anyway, he went to the White House and he wrote, "Breaking news. President Trump has hundreds of black conservatives at the White House to celebrate Black History Month. The White House is currently filled with laughter, hope, and happiness. Ninja, we made it." That's just crass, isn't it? On a number of levels. Absolutely. But you know what else is crass on a number of levels? And not in a good way like the band Crass, but in
Russell
a bad
Brand.
way. Well, yes, that's true, but also Elon Musk.
Yeah.
You see, let's play an exciting game of pick his baby mother. You've got a lot to go for. Which of his baby mothers was complaining about Elon Musk on Twitter?
Grimes.
Spot on. Grimes couldn't get in contact with Elon Musk about the health of their child.
So she at him.
She didn't at him because he was not responding to her. She publicly tweeted, "Please respond about our child's medical crisis. I am sorry to do this publicly, but it is no longer acceptable to ignore the situation. This requires immediate attention. If you don't want to talk to me, can you please designate or hire someone who can so that we can move forward on solving this? This is urgent, Elon."
Just for 1 second. Let's forget that they're these mega famous people or whatever. They're people.
A couple.
And this is a woman trying to get hold of the father of her child. And the only way she can do it is by posting on social media that the man
on the
owns,
social media platform that he owns,
knowing that he's going to get just on a human level, that's fucking heartbreaking, dude. Wow.
But what's interesting is why can't she at him? She doesn't at him. She writes out Elon. She doesn't put his Twitter handle there. Almost like he's blocked her. So but she goes on. "I'm not giving any details, but he won't respond to text calls or emails and has skipped every meeting, and our child will suffer lifelong impairment if he doesn't respond ASAP. So I need him to fucking respond. And if I have to apply public pressure, then I guess that's where we're at." Then she started having conversations with her friends about this, like saying, yeah, I've been trying to get in touch with Elon, blah, 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 blah. Somebody started deleting the tweets, but it wasn't Grimes.
Somebody
Started deleting the tweets. So rather than respond to text, calls, emails, for some reason she can't reach him on Twitter. She has to publicly go on Twitter, and then as a sort of, one would assume, damage control or damage limitation exercise, somebody at Twitter starts deleting all of Grimes' tweets. And it was definitely not her, because it was done in such a way that basically there were still responses to the conversations and stuff like that. And then there was somewhere responses had been deleted and things. And it was, she also, there was a back and forth where one of her friends had noticed that things were going missing. And yeah, I don't have that because it's since gone missing. But yeah, that's the crazy, happy world of Elon Musk and Grimes. But yeah, as you say,
prick. What a total prick.
Yeah, completely.
Like, besides the drama.
Well, absolutely. That's like, you don't treat people like that, do you? Like there's two ways of looking at it. Like, one, they are just people, but also two, these are very wealthy people with like a lot of resources and stuff like
It
that.
just makes me hate him on a personal level as well.
No, totally. But that's what I'm saying. Like, imagine being Grimes, right? Okay, imagine having a fucking child with the richest man on the planet and being reduced to attention seeking on Twitter. Like, I don't mean that. Sorry, that she's attention seeking. I mean that's her last recourse to try and get the father of her. It's mind blowing, isn't it? It's absolutely mind blowing. Scum, subhuman scum. And you know who else is subhuman scum?
I knew that was coming. Wicked.
Steve Bannon.
Oh, mate.
Steve Bannon.
Perfect segue. I love it.
Steve Bannon appeared at CPAC, the the Conservative Action Committee, and the one that Nigel Farage was going to go and speak at, and Liz Truss was also going to go and speak at. And he did something. He made a gesture, shall we say. I'll bet you can guess what it was.
Oh, did he send his love out to the audience?
He did send his love out to the audience, although as The Independent recorded, Bannon's gesture was a fast flash of a stiff arm off to the side. The motion had no other obvious message than what seemed apparent. He whipped out the salute after emphatically urging the CPAC audience in National Harbor, Maryland to fight, fight, fight when it drew applause. Bannon made a quick nod and responded, Amen. Bannon called for a third term for Trump and said that leaders like him come along only twice in a century.
Oh.
So Steve Bannon does a Nazi salute.
But
yeah.
I like it, but it's wrong.
It's
factually inaccurate. It's a different century.
Well, that's true as well. Well, he said twice in history. So to be fair to him, he's right. But I think it's fairly obvious that he's probably not referring to Stalin. Like, I don't think. So, yeah. But he also then started to warn that the oligarchs will actually abandon the Republicans. And this seemed to be a very thinly veiled attack at Elon Musk. And this was reported in The Hill. He said that the oligarchs close to President Trump will abandon Republicans the same way that they did to Democrats. He said about Elon Musk and Zuckerberg, you can tell President Trump doesn't totally trust the oligarchs. The advisor turned podcaster went on to say that he wasn't a conservative, but is registered with the Republican Party and sees himself as a populist nationalist, which is not a good thing. Right?
He says, NAPO?
Yeah, apparently. he says they've abandoned the progressive left, talking about these oligarchs, and they will abandon us and do the same thing. They seek power. Right now, their feeling is that they can see the math and they can see that we have a built-in coalition. So they're with us, but it's only temporary. And he's been obviously very, very critical of Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. And he said that Elon Musk wants to impose his freak experiments on the United States. Now, as you can imagine, doing a Nazi salute probably went down a little bit bad with quite a lot of people. But there were some people that absolutely loved it. And one of those people was Mexican white supremacist Nick Fuentes.
I thought he was coming up because he loved the last one.
However, he said that basically, he said, Steve Bannon throwing up a Roman salute, it's sick. But it's getting a little uncomfortable, even for a guy like me. I feel like that guy in the picture who wouldn't Heil Hitler. And he's referring to that picture where there's the guy, the communist who won't Heil Hitler, blah, blah, blah. And basically what he's saying is that, look, I like Hitler. We all like Hitler. But this is getting a bit fucking, even for me, we're not supposed to all explain that we like Hitler until we absolutely have to. Although, he goes on to reveal that when Kanye West was running for president, Nick Fuentes actually wrote the policies that Kanye West was going to run on. And can you guess where he cribbed them from?
Obama.
Not quite. He apparently took them directly from Hitler's manifesto.
Oh my God.
And so Kanye West was apparently going to run for president on policies that were directly copied from Hitler. One thing that was interesting, though, is that in this same conversation, Nick, who's been sort of not getting slack, because Nick's one of these strange people who seems almost impervious to any type of insult or any sort of criticism. He just simply doesn't seem to care. And somebody asked him about his Mexican heritage, and he says that he's a half Italian and a quarter Irish and a quarter Mexican. And somebody looked this up, but apparently this means that in the early 20th century, he would have been considered black under the USA's one-drop law in several states. And this basically stated that you can't have a single drop of black blood without being considered non-white. And those states were South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Kentucky, Maryland, Virginia, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Missouri, Texas, and Arkansas. And so if Nick Fuentes had been born in the early 20th century in any of those states, he would have been considered a black person. Now, interestingly, Steve Bannon's Nazi salute was too much for some people. They didn't enjoy it nearly as much as Nick Fuentes did. It was a problem for Jordan Bardella. Do you know who Jordan Bardella is?
Never heard of him.
Nor did I. Apparently, he's a French far-right politician. And he felt that a Nazi salute was a bit too much even for him. According to The Guardian, the French far-right leader Jordan Bardella on Friday morning cancelled a scheduled speech at the US Conservative Political Action Conference in National Harbor, Maryland, after Donald Trump's former aide Steve Bannon flashed a fascist-style salute there hours before. Bardella of the far-right National Rally Party in France pulled out of CPAC, citing Bannon's allusion to Nazi ideology. Yesterday, while I was not present in the room, one of the speakers, out of provocation, allowed himself a gesture alluding to Nazi ideology. I therefore took the immediate decision to cancel my speech that had been scheduled this afternoon. So, a member of an official far-right party turned up at America's Conservative Political Action Conference and went, "Nope, this is too Nazi, even for me," and left.
Wow.
Yeah. Apparently the whole thing was a fucking circus. It was weird. It was properly weird in the sort of weird MAGA weird Tom. What's his name? What's his bloody name? Tom McDonald, like rapping shit. It was like it was all that sort of bizarre shit. Like the Daily Mirror sent people there and sent a reporter. And this is what she saw. She said that there were pictures of donkeys that represented DEI. The DEI donkeys that you could kill by shooting arrows at. They weren't real, but you could shoot arrows at these DEI donkeys to kill diversity, equity, and inclusion. You could also buy these hideously cheaply made Trump watches for a snip at $2,500. And also he had plenty left over of those shoes, you know, those like Chinese Jordan knockoffs, the gold ones.
The golden ones, yeah.
Yeah, they're now going for $400 a pair.
These are like caricatures of human beings.
Yeah, it goes on. There were a load of J6 rioters there, and they were all signing autographs and taking photos with members of the public.
Were they singing songs?
No, unfortunately, Kill 'Em All, or whatever it was called. No, Justice for All. They didn't turn up. Like, apparently they didn't turn up, so they weren't able to do it. But I'll tell you who did turn up. Kodak Black. Kodak Black, the insane and currently out of his mind on drugs rapper, last seen high as a fucking giraffe's tits, lying in the middle of the road, trying desperately to eat chicken and failing. He's got a serious drug problem at the moment. Like, and he was pardoned by Trump for making false statements to buy a gun, and previously has been accused of rape. He performed an exclusive set, an after party that was in the living room of somebody's flat, and the party was catered. I don't know whether you've ever seen these things, but they really don't spare any expense. Chicken McNuggets as far as the eye could see, with any number of dips. You could have as many as you want, Brent, and you could have as many dips as you wanted.
I'm down with that.
It was astonishing. Liz Truss and Nigel Farage were also in attendance. So speaking of people that may have been drugged out of their mind, Elon Musk was also there, and he was fucking dreadful. He was absolutely like crap. He came on wearing a long trench coat and his stupid dark MAGA hat and these enormous sunglasses that made him look like he was from the 80s. And people have speculated from the way he was acting, the way he was giggling like a tit, and the way that he was swaying all over the place, that these glasses were there to hide the fact that he was high as a fucking kite. Several things that he said as he continues Elon Musk's bogus journey were, "Yo, I am become meme." And that went down like a fucking shit in an elevator. So he tried again. Yo, I'm like totally living the meme. And then he paused for applause and laughter because I don't know whether you spotted it, right? Okay, but he'd replaced the word dream. Anyway, he then goes on to say that the left have ruined comedy in an act of supreme unawareness. And says, like, you can't make fun of like anything anymore. Like, you know, like, yo, like, make comedy free again. And it's just like, oh, this is painful. And it could have got more painful because then he brought out crypto fascist Javier Milei and started parading around with a chainsaw and saying, "This is the chainsaw that is going to cut government spending. This is the chainsaw that is going to cut government spending." Yeah, much of the internet did speculate that he was off his tits, probably on ket. He also slurred his words impossibly and really struggled to get a lot of sentences out. Nick Fuentes, who appears to be the arbiter of all things, described it as...
Wait. He was at CPAC.
Who?
Elon.
Yeah,
He was at
yeah.
CPAC.
Off
And
his
he
tits on
brought on
ketamine with Javier
Javi
Milei and
and
a chainsaw, and then continued to do like a sort of impromptu interview where he kept making jokes that didn't land.
at CPAC.
At CPAC, yeah. I did
Wow.
say it was a little
Okay.
bit of a circus. Nick Fuentes, who you know, it's difficult to want to agree with, but he said, "This is fucking face melting cringe. We elected President Reddit. It should have been President 4chan," which is,
What?
I don't agree with. He's saying that he's saying that he's doing all the memes and he wants him to do the Nazi shit. I don't agree with that bit. I'll just make that absolutely clear. President 4chan, he means do something horrible to foreigners, essentially. That's what he's getting at with that. So anyway, Elon Musk tweeted out this picture. Like, I can't really show it to you. How can I show you this? He's holding the chainsaw. He's got a great big gold chain on, sunglasses, and his black hat. He's wearing a Crombie coat, and he's written "the Doge Father" next to it. He's tweeted that out proudly, and the CPAC banner is behind him, and he's put "This is a real picture," which elicited a response from somebody that, if I'm brutally honest, I didn't expect to step into this particular discussion. You won't get this. It's too obscure. It's Alistair Campbell, the former advisor to Tony Blair and possible architect of the dodgy dossier that sent us to war with Iraq. He succinctly put, in response to "This is a real photo," "You are a real twat." Which is apparently the world that we're living in now. Former aides to prime ministers go on Twitter to call aides to presidents real twats in response to them posting pictures of them waving a chainsaw around at CPAC.
He's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong. Now, there was some taxpayer money that had gone to waste, shall we say. But interestingly, and I'm sure they'll be fascinated by this, I'm sure they're going to get onto this and they're going to, look into this immediately. But this wasn't uncovered by Doge. This was uncovered by other people. And as the Economic Times reported, the US president has already spent $10.7 million of taxpayer money to play golf since returning to the White House last month. Despite his and Elon's ongoing war on wasteful spending by government agencies, not to mention them both trying to ban people working from home, the president has spent all 4 weekends on the green since being sworn in for the second time at a high-profile inauguration ceremony on January 20th. The calculations by the media outlet were made by breaking down the cost of Trump's first trips to Mar-a-Lago during his first term, with the GAO estimating that each trip cost $3,383,250. Roughly one-third of the figure was the round-trip flight cost of Air Force One, with additional expenses for flying down vehicles, including 2 presidential limousines and Trump's motorcade. According to the GAO, the Coast Guard was also paid for stationing a gunship in the Atlantic Ocean just off the coast and heavily armed boats in the intercoastal waterway. The report acknowledged that the costs were based on 2017 dollars and were likely to be somewhat higher today due to inflation. So based on 2017 levels of spending, Donald Trump has already, in a month, spent $10 million of taxpayer money golfing on his own course. And that's not to mention the other scams that he's got going on, because where all the, do you know he charges the Secret Service to stay at his hotels?
Yes,
and he charges them a premium rate.
Yeah.
So that 10 million is a conservative estimate, and that doesn't mean that's not even all the money that we'll be making off these trips. The fucking balls on these guys, the absolute fucking balls on these guys.
I mean, he is a genius capitalist.
He is, but it is something that you should probably be thrown in prison for.
Yes, you are evil If you are a
Yeah.
genius capitalist, you're evil. Simple.
Speaking of evil people and being thrown in prison, Nigel Farage told the crowd at CPAC that in the UK, you can get arrested and thrown in prison for saying things. If anybody knows the fucking Stuart Lee bit, in this country, you can literally get arrested and thrown in prison just for saying that you're English nowadays. Like, that's essentially what he's saying. He's appearing at CPAC, and he was shocking. And he came out to this song. That was the thing that really sort of like perked me. It was like a sort of like rock, like a guitar based like hip hop loop, like he was a fucking wrestler or something. And the song, it's a song called The Hardest Part by someone called Icholix. And it doesn't suit his persona at all. And ironically, I found out that Icholix is actually Ukrainian and lives in Kiev. But but anyway, so he comes out to this rap rock thing, and he says, "In my country, you can't say anything, or you might get put in prison," which is hyperbolic to say the least, isn't it? I mean, it's just not true. It really isn't true. Like, he's harking on about, he's trying to give this impression that, like, oh, the free speech issue and people are arrested for tweets and stuff like that. It's all bullshit. People were arrested for inciting violence and encouraging people to murder others, which is illegal. Tough. But he does this 10-minute speech, and he basically spends most of it kissing Trump's arse. He spends some time talking about sovereignty and borders, which is fucking ironic, seeing as bearing in mind his stance on Russia. He also refers to the EU as being what the trade unionists wanted, which sounds a little bit like sort of things that Hitler would say. But and he also makes dog whistles about countries being invaded by men of military age.
Oh, that old chestnut.
It's painfully shit. And you know who else is painfully shit?
Everyone that we cover on this fucking show.
But specifically, almost egregiously and expertly, Liz Truss is painfully shit.
Yeah.
She tried a speech. She tried a rabble-rousing speech. And unfortunately, no one turned up. Well, it's not fair to say that no one turned
empty
up.
place again.
Yeah, it was dreadfully empty. Now, again, she was moved to the lunchtime slot, but still, not very many people turned up. And it was one of those where it's like, there were so few people there that it would have been less embarrassing had no people turned up. We've all played gigs like that. But yeah, like, now obviously there's a sort of like a hint of pro Russia bizarrely going through this, and recently Donald Trump has made statements that go quite along the lines of Kremlin propaganda and against established fact. So some people have been questioning, is Donald Trump a KGB asset? And this was reported by Cursive Media, and it's later repeated by Byline Times. The former chairman of Kazakhstan's National Security Committee, the KNB, Alnur Musayev, claims that the Soviet KGB recruited Donald Trump before the collapse of the USSR, assigning him the alias Krasnov. And he shared this assertion on his Facebook page. He said,
What is Krasnov?
I don't know. It's just his alias.
Golden showers.
Oh, that would be lovely, wouldn't it? Yeah. I don't know. Quickly, let's look it up. If Krasnov has got a meaning. Hang on. Meaning in Russian. Krasnov. It means golden shower. No, it does. It means sadly. It means red. It's a Russian family name. It was a popular It's the 167th most popular surname in Russia in 2019, apparently. But so this guy suggests that this was his nickname, and he writes on Facebook. In 1987, I served in the 6th Directorate of the KGB in Moscow. Our primary mission was recruiting business people from capitalist countries. That year, our directorate recruited Donald Trump, a 40-year-old American businessman, under the pseudonym Krasnov. And Alnir Mosayev acknowledged that the idea of a US president being a spy or an agent of influence for a adversary state might seem far-fetched, even beyond Hollywood's imagination. However, he argued that nothing is impossible in the world of intelligence. Everything is impossible, even the wildest and most unbelievable things, he said. For example, the recruitment of future heads of state, even the president of the US. In 2018, Musayev lamented that Kazakhstan had not adequately monitored or evaluated Trump's actions on the international stage or in US domestic politics. He suggested that Trump's policies were contributing to a shift in global standards and values. He said, Donald Trump is on the hook with the FSB, which is Russia's principal security agency and successor to the KGB, and swallows the bait deeper and deeper. Numerous circumstantial facts published in the media support this. There is a concept known as the recruitability of a target. Based on my experience in operational work with the KGB and the KNB, I can say with certainty that Trump falls into the category of a highly recruitable individual. I have no doubt that Russia possesses compromat, which is damaging information, on the US president, and that the Kremlin has been grooming him for years to ascend to the presidency of the world's leading power. He claimed that the US political elite is well aware of Trump's dependence on the Kremlin, but cannot openly acknowledge this due to the country's global standing. Certainly, they conduct investigations, they prosecute members of the president's inner circle, and they publish critical reports. Prominent figures, including members of Congress, have called Trump a traitor. All of this is done in the hope that Trump will step down on his own or that the situation will lead to a soft impeachment, removing him from office without formally recognizing him as a Russian agent, Musayev noted. Various media outlets have previously alleged that Trump was recruited nearly 40 years ago and that the Kremlin has compromising material on him from visits to Moscow in 1987 and 2013. Well, I mean, it's one of these interesting things where, as I say, like there's been lots of rumors about that for ages, and Donald Trump he's known to be corrupt and in bed with the mafia. Even fucking Alex Jones used to say that. Like, there should be some comeuppance, unfortunately, but I don't think there ever really will be. And this is going to be one of those things that's probably going to be debated long after Trump is dead, with some people like swearing blind that he was a Russian asset, and some people just going, "Could it have been more obvious?" And other people saying, "No, it wasn't. He's just aligned with." He's got his own set of Christian fascist values. He doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to be aligned.
No, totally. He's got conservative Christian values.
Yeah.
And the Russians have Russian Orthodox conservative Christian values.
Yeah,
it is quite different.
Although, remember what we were saying on the last episode about Alexander Dugin's plans? The isolation of that could be how he's an asset. They're basically like surrounding him with people or creating the scenarios where he thinks that what he's doing is a good thing, but actually it's falling into their larger plans, say. Well, speaking of Christians, fascists, and people getting their comeuppance, Calvin Robinson had a bit of a bad week.
I thought it was going to be a Quasimodo.
It was, yes. A Quasimodo. He's not having the best time at the moment. He tweeted out, "This week, after being doxxed, abused." This is serious, Brent. Like the poor guy.
I'm already guessing that he hasn't been doxxed.
Well, I don't recall him being doxxed, to be quite honest. Like, and who cares? Like, it's Calvin Robinson.
You call him by his full name, and it's like, I've been doxxed.
Yeah, probably.
You're a public figure, dude.
Well, he doesn't. The fact that he's been doxxed, it turns out that doesn't matter, as you'll find out. This week, after being doxxed, abused, hounded by the press, sacked, and smeared by the Archbishop, I had another battle to fight. My US visa was revoked. But we soldier on. So you don't need to worry about the doxing because they're kicking you out of the fucking country. Wow. So that's one less thing for him to worry about. You see, when God closes a door, he opens a window. Maybe you should jump out of that fucking window. Also, when he says sacked and smeared by the Archbishop, I really hope that he means sacked like you would sack a quarterback and smeared as in a dirty Sanchez, wiping shit directly across his face. I really hope that is exactly what happened to him. But anyway, so he's got this letter from the US Department of State basically saying that because he's not got a job anymore, his visa's been revoked. That is a shame, isn't it? But as you say, that is one less thing for him to worry about because if anyone turns up at his address, having been doxxed, he won't be there. So, extremely exciting news in America. Trump, he's a man who keeps his word, yes?
For the sake of argument, sure.
Absolutely. When he says that something's going to get done, it absolutely 100% gets done. Like,
I mean,
and
he has made America great again.
He has, absolutely. No one could argue with that. He also said that he would release the Epstein files.
He did.
And Pam Bondi claims to have the Epstein list. This is incredible. The Hill reported the alleged client list of disgraced financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is on Attorney General Pam Bondi's desk. She confirmed this in an interview, making the elusive document one step closer to potential public release. Bondi said she has not yet seen any major revelations from the closely guarded document, but she's in the process of reviewing it at President Trump's direction under an executive order to declassify federal secrets. It's sitting on my desk right now to review, Bondi told Fox News. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. She also went on to say that she's in the process of reviewing documents related to investigations into the assassinations of former President Kennedy and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies, she said. So remember, on February the 21st, Pam Bondi said that the Epstein list was sitting on her desk. Now, that's big if true.
Huge if true.
Huge if true. Now, I'm sure everybody knows what the Epstein list is. However, just to explain, it's been suggested that Epstein was trafficking these girls and might have had a list of clients who he either provided girls to as favors or for blackmail purposes. There is zero evidence to back any of this up other than speculation and the fact that some of his properties had hidden cameras and recording equipment in them, which has led some to speculate that that might be potentially what he was doing. But I would reiterate that there is no actual evidence of this. So, there is also a little black book that is sometimes touted as the list. This is an address book that belonged to Ghislaine. It's got all sorts of people in there, including Donald Trump, but it's also got his favourite pizzeria and the laundrette that they use. So, although, as I say it out loud, the pizzeria, Jesus.
Uh-oh.
Oh my God. And then the laundrette would be where they would clean up all the blood. Oh my Christ. Wow. Well, yeah, so there's no need for Pam Bondi to release that. It's absolutely fine. Like we've solved it. But yeah. The problem is, I say that people get a lot wrong about that case, unfortunately. But anyway, let's see. 21st of February, Pam Bondi says that the Epstein list is on her desk being reviewed. So exciting times ahead. But as I say, people have been very wrong about some of the details of that case. And on the 22nd of February, somebody else was very wrong quite a lot. And that person was RFK Jr. And
that's standard.
the problem with him being wrong is that he was being wrong about things that are connected to his job. And his job is the head of the HHS, or the secretary of the HHS, Health and Human Services. He's basically been tasked with the plan of making America healthy again. And, when I look to someone to make me healthy, I always think of someone who's over 70, who's taking testosterone, who once had a worm eat part of his brain, who drinks industrial dye because of some things he's read off the internet. Anyway, he was interviewed by professional idiot Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham is really, really sort of licking the boots of Donald Trump and the administration. She's gone full lickspittle, which is embarrassing for her because Donald Trump publicly embarrassed her, saying, look at her bleeding from a bad facelift and bleeding from other places. And it was just very unpleasant. But anyway, she's just following orders. So Kennedy told Ingraham that the US literally has the sickest population in the world. And he didn't mean that like some sort of teenager or a rapper. He meant that like illness. And that's just not true. It's a massive exaggeration. Whilst Americans generally have poorer health than people living in other wealthy nations, they still live longer and are healthier than much of the world. Like there's levels to this shit. Stick your average American up against your average Norwegian, they're going to look dreadful. But stick them up against somebody from a third world country, and that person might have died on the trip over. So,
yeah.
He also said that the people in the USA buy 70% of the pharmaceutical drugs on Earth. But apparently, in a 2023 survey by IQVIA, the Institute for Human Data Science, Americans used only 6% of the world's prescription drugs. Kennedy also basically claimed that replacing seed oils used to cook Big Macs with beef tallow would make burgers good for people. But available evidence suggests that the switch, if anything, would actually slightly harm people more than help. He also claimed, for some reason, that the National Institute of Health told doctors and patients not to report injuries after taking an abortion drug. And the drug that he's likely referencing, which is regulated by the FDA, is more stringent adverse event reporting requirements than the vast majority of prescription medicines. So he just flat out lies about this. Like seemingly to demonize abortion doctors and this particular abortion medicine.
What the fuck, man?
It's crazy. And as I said, like recommending people eat Big Macs and lying or not knowing about the state of health and prescription drug use in the country that he's supposed to be in charge of the fucking health services for. Like, Ingraham also asked about over-the-counter abortion drugs that had regulation loosened during Biden. But Greer Donnelly, an abortion law expert at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law, told us in an email that there are no abortion drugs that are available over the counter, and the NIH doesn't regulate any drugs anyway. Still, Donnelly said that she thought that Kennedy was maybe thinking of mifepristone, which is a food and drug, which is FDA approved and is used in medication as abortion, but it's not over the counter. So it's just talking shit. As they've explained previously, multiple studies have found mifepristone to be safe and effective for terminating early pregnancies. The HHS secretary also claimed that almost all members of the department's advisory committees had severe conflicts of interest, But federal rules actually prevent such experts from participating in matters that could directly and predictably affect their financial interests. And recently, there was a survey that was done on this, and it proves that no, there is no conflict of interest. There was apparently one conflict of interest that was spotted. There's something like 200, and there's nearly 300 people on this board, and they do multiple reviews, and there was only one time in like the last 5 years or something that was a potential conflict of interest, where 7 of these doctors were found to have a conflict of interest on one committee meeting for one drug, and it was spotted, and therefore other people were put onto it. So there just isn't widespread corruption or conflict of interest in big pharma like that. Now, if you want to talk about lobbying to politicians, maybe, and stuff like that, but that's a completely different thing. He also repeated some of his go-to claims about vaccines, including the false idea that vaccines are the one medical product that is exempt from pre-licensing safety studies, which is just not true. All vaccines are tested for safety before being approved. So, yeah. Utter bullshit. Just utter bullshit. And it's difficult to know whether Kennedy is incompetent or lying or malicious. And it could be any of those things, to be quite honest. Or it could be a combination of the three. Like, do you know what I mean? It could be...
There's a spectrum.
Yes. And speaking of people who are on the spectrum, who also might be lying, might be ill-informed, or might be being malicious.
Are we back to Elon?
We are back to Elon. Elon Musk's bogus journey. He accuses Zelensky in a tweet of murdering the American journalist Gonzalo Lira. Yeah. So the tweet was... that Zelensky had killed an American journalist. And Alex Jones also got sort of all bent out of shape about this. He's done lots of bits about Gonzalo Lira. He claims that he was an American citizen telling the truth about the conflict in the Ukraine, who was illegally tortured and beaten to death in prison in Ukraine. So who is this fellow? So Gonzalo Lira Lopez, born in 1968, he died in January 2024. He was a Chilean-American novelist, filmmaker, commentator, and see where it all immediately starts to go downhill. Self-styled dating coach. So yes, he was part of the manosphere, like Myron Gaines and Fresh and Fit. And he was known for posting anti-feminist content under the name Coach Red Pill. Which is shit. But he lived in Kharkiv, Ukraine, and he basically vlogs about the 2022 Russian invasion, and has been accused of being a Russian asset and described as spreading Russian disinformation and propaganda. And things that he'd done is, for example, claimed that the Bucha massacre never happened. In April 2022, Lira briefly disappeared, stating that he'd been detained by the security services of Ukraine. And in May 2023, he was arrested and charged with producing and publishing material that tried to justify the ongoing Russian invasion, which is currently illegal under Ukrainian law, which is absolutely correct. That's exactly what he's tried to do. He's one of these, like, oh, the Russians were stopping them killing their own citizens. We had to come in to protect these ethnic Russians in areas of Ukraine, which is just not true. Anyway, he was arrested. He was released on bail, and he tried to flee the country before he was to be put on trial. He was very ill, and he was arrested for violating his bail conditions, and he died of pneumonia in custody in January 12, 2024. Now, he was actually born in California, in Burbank, which is quite a posh area, and he was actually an English teacher in South America before getting his degree. And he published a novel in 1998, it was a spy thriller called Counterparts, and also one called Acrobat. And apparently Miramax bought the rights to this, but I don't think it ever came out. And from 2010 to 2013, he was a blogger. So he was basically blogging on a Drudge Report and sometimes on Business Insider. But in 2017, he became an active YouTuber under the pseudonym Coach Red Pill, which is an allusion to red pill and black pill symbolism in the manosphere community. His content was misogynistic and anti-feminist in nature, and he tried to appeal to incels, the involuntarily celibate. Lyra posted videos with advice such as, never date a woman in her 30s. And he argued that all women wanted was money, a house, and kids, and only child rearing would biologically validate them as human beings. He was also a COVID denialist, and he claimed that the response to COVID in all countries was tyranny. So in 2022, he began living in Ukraine. He'd been there, for years in 2022. But following the Russian Ukraine invasion, he found a bit of his niche and shifted to commentary on the war. And it was heavily pro-Russian, praised Russian military actions, it denied Russian attacks on civilians, and he also doxed Western journalists and made quite a lot of them unsafe in the region. His content, which has been described as Russian propaganda and disinformation, was amplified on social media by Kremlin-linked accounts and was praised by Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. So it's pretty clear what he was doing. So he was, he was arrested. He was released. He violated his bail conditions. He was rearrested and he died. But in December 2023, Elon Musk publicly inquired about Lyra on his platform in response to a post by media personality Tucker Carlson, who called Lyra a political prisoner. So it's all the same people basically touting the same fucking Russian propaganda. But the SVU responded that Lyra had been detained in accordance with the law. Musk's note was also labelled with a community note, explaining that the nature of Lyra's charges, after which Musk said that the note had been gamed by state actors.
I was going to ask that. Please tell me that it got community noted.
It did, but it was another rare occasion of the state gaming it, which is strange because Musk had said that this is the best possible fact-finding system on the planet. Odd when it doesn't go his way. But in a Business Insider interview that month, Sarah Ashton Carullo, who had become a Ukrainian military spokeswoman, asserted that Lyra had fabricated his torture accusations in an effort to gain sympathy. And his father also backed up his claims that he was tortured to death, but also he'd been sent letters saying that he was ill with pneumonia, and he said that he wasn't receiving the correct treatment. So the father said two things that seemed to contradict one another. It seems more likely that they probably just let him die of pneumonia and didn't give him the treatment that he wanted. But to be quite honest, he's an active propagandist in a war, praising an invading country. You could put yourselves in people's shoes, and whilst not justifying it, understanding why they felt that was the right thing for them to do. But the Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, Maria Zakharova, said, the tragedy of Gonzalo Lyra, who dared to have his own opinions, has vividly, and sorry, she's the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman. The tragedy of Gonzalo Lyra, who dared to have his own opinion, has vividly revealed again the face of the collective West. A zealous advocate of speech and press freedom in word, it defends them in deed only, when convenient to its interests. We are urging Gonzalo Lyra's colleagues to raise their voice in defense of the prisoners of the Kiev regime. This is necessary for those that are still alive and can still fight for the truth. It is also a tribute to the memory of those that died as martyrs for the cause of freedom. We would like to convey our most sincere condolences to Gonzalo Lyra's family and friends. Some people didn't agree with this. One of these people was a journalist called Drew Pavlo. And he tweeted, Gonzalo Lyra moved to Ukraine to rape women and pass coordinates for airstrikes to Russian military, true scum of the earth. And he posts a video, and in it, Lyra says, women are like dogs. You have to treat them like you would treat a dog. Every woman responds well to a violent physical encounter. He goes on to say, every woman I've ever been with responds extraordinarily well to an almost violent physical encounter. I'm not saying rape. I'm not saying violence that leads to any permanent injury. But so fuck him. I don't care.
What an absolute wow.
Yeah. He sounds like a fucking internet nerd that doesn't know how to treat women, to be quite honest, and is projecting his insecurities onto the world. And he also sounds like he's probably got a lot of people fucking killed. So fuck him. And speaking of internet nerds that don't know how to treat women, Elon's bogus journey continues.
Oh, I thought we were going back to Nick Fuentes then.
Well, we could have done, but no, he doesn't know how to treat women. He's never even seen a woman. Actually, Nick Fuentes is a proud virgin, although he has made some statements about how you should probably marry girls in their late teens, which is icky, isn't it? But hey. But he's not going to do that, is he? Like, come on, Nick. Come on, Nick. We know the real reason. Anyway, Ashley Sinclair, if you remember, she's recently become yet another one of Elon Musk's brood mares. And she's decided, basically, to sue Elon Musk because he hasn't actually acknowledged their child yet. So, this is reported in the Daily Mail. Sinclair, 26, filed a petition in New York on Friday asking for total custody of her son, who goes by RSC in the court docs, and for Musk, 53, to take a paternity test. As part of the exhibits for the paternity petition, the Conservative Firebrand shared a picture of Musk holding her son, who was born in September of last year. Alleged text messages from after the child's birth were also added in the suit, which includes one from the day that the boy was born. Sinclair had sent Musk a picture of her clutching the newborn in the delivery room. Ah, well, Musk replied. Because those paternal instincts just kick in straight away. You know, I've been told it's an unbreakable bond, a love that you'll never experience. But no, Elon Musk put, ah, well. Anyway, she responded, he's perfect. And Musk replied, I look forward to seeing you and him this weekend, which is surprisingly formal. It sounds a little bit like a sort of Victorian father, but like, hey. In another, Sinclair sent him a selfie of her and a friend, to which Musk replied, hi, cutie. And she, and she then texted him back saying, hi, see you soon. So the Tesla boss and first buddy followed up with a shocking reply. He then texts back, I want to knock you up again. But then other messages show Musk talking about a credible death threat on his life, saying that he was number 2 after Trump for assassination. Oh, promises. But he told her, wake up. This is not the time for sentiment at the expense of safety. If I make a mistake on security, so-and-so, redacted because this is the kid's name, will never know his father. And Sinclair responded saying, that's why the father spot on the birth certificate is blank, right? Anyway, he has my last name. And Musk added, necessary for now. Only the paranoid survive. The man's a fucking idiot. He really does. Like, he's never been off the fucking ketamine.
Right, yeah, what am I saying?
Like, no, seriously. Apparently, he takes it once a week, but he defends it because it's medically prescribed. But like, I'll be astonished if his bladder holds out. But anyway, apparently, repeated ketamine use can give you delusions of grandeur and a feeling of separation from the rest of the world. But I don't think we're seeing any of that from Elon Musk. Anyway, so also basically because he's fearful of assassination, he's not seen the child nor signed the birth certificate. That's what he's claiming. But he continues, the threat level will reach insane levels until the election is decided. loose lips sink ships. And it's like, I don't understand how signing your son's birth certificate would make you a threat for assassination. Surely she could post it to you. Like, I don't know. This sounds like so why have you not come and seen the kids? I'm an international spy, baby. I shouldn't be able to tell you this. Like that sounds like the bookies, yeah. But I'm undercover in the bookies at the minute. Because I'm a spy.
I thought you just said that he was exhibiting no signs of delusions of grandeur.
Well, I was being sarcastic. Like,
oh, right, okay.
Like, the man's incredibly.
You're hard to read, Neil. You're hard to read.
I know. I'm sorry. Like, I'm drier than Gandhi's flip flops sometimes. But he then goes that he, in another text exchange, he said that Sinclair says that she felt that their relationship broke down when Musk's fixer and right-hand man Jared Bachal allegedly got involved. She claimed, "He said a lot of pretty horrible things to me that he attributed to you, and I feel as though there was never a rift in our relationship before that." That's interesting. That sounds to me like she said, Jared's come up to me and said, Elon said this and this and this about you. Maybe that, like, you're a grifting bitch that got pregnant on purpose because I'm the richest man in the world. One can only speculate. Like, whether this came from Jared or Elon or what was actually said, obviously, is completely unknown. But it certainly seems like that one of them has got hopes for this relationship that maybe the other one doesn't. She then claimed, she then said, if you're in New York, if you'd like me to come to DC, I would really appreciate being able to speak to you in person. I care about you deeply and feel as though third parties have put a major rift in our relationship that I truly wish was better for the sake of our son. Musk, ever the gentleman, responds, okay. To which she then replied with a gif of Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura saying, all righty then. So they've obviously made up, apparently. And then she adds, then he added, well, we do have a legion of kids to make. Now, call me cynical, but this sounds like somebody that's been pursued by a girl, has gone, fuck it, slept with her, then realised that maybe she's a bit on the make, doesn't want to sort of tell her himself, so he's got his sort of third party to intervene. But unfortunately, she's got pregnant, and she's not going to let go of that. She's attaching herself to him like a barnacle dipped in fucking superglue. And when he's even being sort of, to me, maybe I'm reading too much of it, when he's responding, okay, she's going, right, okay, I'd be like, okay, are you fucking serious? You fucking had a baby with me, you bastard. Come and fucking look after it. But she goes, no, I'll put a picture of Jim Carrey up because she's trying to creep back in with him. And then he goes, well, we do have a legion of kids to make, which is basically him going, this bitch is crazy, but I might get her to touch it if I'm lucky. It seems greasy and pathetic on both sides. As I say, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but basically that's what I see. So anyway, she claims in her findings that Musk has only ever met the boy 3 times and that he's not involved in the raising of the child at all. But she also alleges that he wasn't present for the birth and hasn't really expressed any interest in seeing the child at all. According to documents, she believes that the child was conceived on the island of St. Bart's, and she requests an order for genetic testing. I am not currently married to respondent or any other person. I did not have sexual intercourse with any other male during the time the child was conceived. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's had sexual intercourse with Elon, because a lot of his other children were conceived by IVF. It just means that basically that's just legal talk to basically say she believes that Elon is the only possible father. But that's shitty behaviour. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't think anyone comes out of that smelling of roses, to be quite honest. And I think it's dreadful for the child that, I don't know, you could be forgiven. Some people have made the suggestion, this is not necessarily the opinion of some dare call it conspiracy, that the child is basically being used as a tool by both parties.
True. And again, though, it's so tragic that like this gets played out in public like this.
Yeah. It's so grim, isn't it? And it's so tacky. Yeah, it is.
There's a child at the center of this.
This
and
is
these
the
two
thing.
fucking idiots are playing around on social media.
Yeah. But both of them again, using. I mean, she's not the first woman to do it, and she may well not have done it. Who knows? It could be love's eternal dream. But getting pregnant to snare a rich man is not usually recommended. But also this concept of just fathering fucking kids, but then not looking after them or not taking any interest in their lives is just cruel, and it flies in the face of so-called conservative values as well. Like it is ridiculous. I mean, we saw that, didn't we, with Alex Jones's fans, basically, like the backlash against Elon having yet another child out of wedlock. A lot of them were like, "Are you serious? This is not what we want." But I don't care about that. But just on the level of like, these poor fucking kids, they're almost like accessories, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or they're just not even being considered. That's
No.
what's hitting me in this exchange.
So yeah, this behaviour is pretty unacceptable by most people's standards, I would think. It's not too controversial for us to say that. But other people have other standards of what is acceptable. And according to what's acceptable to Nick Fuentes and what is unacceptable is the small amount of people who've been deported from America under Trump's regime. You see, he tweets out that Trump has officially deported fewer illegals in his first month in office, 37,000, than Joe Biden's monthly average, which is 57,000. If only the administration were as aggressive with immigration as it is about budget cuts. So that's white nationalist Nick Fuentes tweeting out that he's disappointed with Trump for not dehumanizing and abusing more people. And this is retweeted by Harrison Smith, who, by the way, has a fucking crucifix in his name on Twitter, but doesn't seem to carry that attitude out. And he says, unacceptable. The number should be 500,000 a month, and there is no excuse to fall short. Legally, financially, politically, and logistically, they have everything they need. So what is the hold-up? And that's the Christian Harrison Smith, who works for InfoWars, who wants people to be brutalized and deported en masse, potentially violently. I just fucking I don't understand this immigration thing. It's absolute bullshit. Like utter fucking bullshit. I wonder if people like actually believe the everything when they talk about immigrants coming over here, blah blah blah, taking our job. Whether they actually believe any of that, or whether that is just the excuse for I want people of color out of here.
I guess, in some cases it is that, but in other cases I don't believe it. So like with Brexit, the argument was a lot about like taking back control of the borders and all this sort of thing. But I do think it speaks to a deep psychological thing of, as humans, as society, and as communities, the idea of invaders is scary. When political people use immigrants as a tool for that kind of rhetoric, it speaks on a psychological level to us. We don't want invaders coming in and taking what is rightfully ours. That's how it's spun. And I think it just speaks to some people in that kind of way, but they don't understand that's what's being used against them.
So it's like a mind hack almost. Right.
Yeah.
So it works on a number of levels because it is the acceptable face of racism. It's the justification for racism. But I would assume that particularly Nick Fuentes, and I would hazard a guess with Harrison Smith, that it's actually about racism. But to other people, it's a way of presenting the argument in a sanitized way and also preying on their, say, inherent instinctual prejudices, systemic prejudice, institutional prejudices, and stuff like that none of us can escape because you grow up in these systems and institutions. Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. Yeah, it's nefarious and it's for dicks.